He's the author of The Internet to the Internet, 5 Ways to Reset Your Connection and Live a Conscious Life. He's Chief Evangelist for brand marketing at Google, helping grow customer brands through digital marketing. He seems to be doing the impossible, combining a fast-paced career in the high-tech industry with a deep yoga and meditation practice, which has allowed him to integrate his inner and outer technologies to a remarkable degree. Beyond being an avid yoga practitioner, he's a triathlete, global traveler, Burning Man devotee, and public speaker. It is a privilege to have Gopi Kallayil on Happier Talk. Gopi, thank you very much for being on Happier Talk.
Thank you, Tal. Pleasure to be here. I've long admired your work, and finally I'm with you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So, the title of A Happy Human, where did that come from?
Well, there was a time when I was taking a walk down Google campus with my coach, mentor, and I was going through the angst that anybody in a corporate career has about climbing ladders and titles and levels. We get caught up in that. Somehow our identity gets trapped in it. And while I was doing that, my friend Stuart, he stopped me and said, Gopi, you got this all wrong. Let me ask you this question. What title would the Dalai Lama give you? And I had just met His Holiness 6 months prior to that in Dharamsala. I reflected on that for a minute, and it struck me that I'd met a man who has lost everything in his life. He lives in exile, he has no country, no money, no power, and yet there's happiness when you see him. He exudes it. So I thought about that and I told Stuart, I think the title he would give me, or the title I would want from him, is The Happy Human. And Stuart leaned over, put his hand on my shoulder and said, Gopi, let me tell you this. Happy Human is a higher title than Senior Vice President. Because the Senior Vice President wants to be happy and does not know how.
Yeah, right.
I said, that is so profound. I'm going to make that my identity. And so I printed out name cards that says The Happy Human. So this way, when I go to an event, you often get the question, so what do you do? And from the past, I would answer, I have this title in this organization. But that is my job, not my identity. So now I say, I am the happy human. Here, take my card.
I love that.
It even says so on the card. and I try to make other people happy as well.
That's funny. Well, that's one of the ways to become a happier
Happy
human,
yeah.
is to make others happy. So what do you do? What do you do within Google? And what can other managers, leaders do in their organizations to increase levels of happiness?
Cool. So I can talk of the core job, which is on the business side. I work in the sales organization of Google as Chief Evangelist brand marketing, which means I work with the top 1,000 brands and help them demystify how to build their brands on digital using all of the platforms that Google has built. But for the purpose of this conversation and this conference, I think what you're asking me is, what do you do in terms of spreading happiness or being part of it? And the thing
but before we go there, are they connected though? So do you see your work as helping them build their brands as connected to raising levels of happiness?
Well, I'm trying to make all of these organizations successful because they're our clients and customers. And when I can help them master something, in this case, mastering the fast-changing world of digital technology, so they can use for their organization, and as long as their organizations are aligned with a meaningful mission and purpose, it is, in a way, spreading happiness or making things better. So, for example, if I work with a financial services company and they're able to bring financial services to a vast tract of the human population, it reduces friction in the economy, it makes economic systems work better, which means at least material prosperity, which is a basic necessity for happiness.
So you are helping them get in touch with their purpose, or with the purpose underneath the goals.
I'm helping them translate the purpose or help them move forward with the purpose by using digital technology and building their brands.
Right. And of course, purpose is very much related to happiness.
Totally, yes.
Good. So what advice would you have? What do you do within Google to raise levels of happiness directly?
I would say Google as an organization, and I'm part of it. There are many things that they built into the organization, the culture that is really drivers of happiness for Googlers, and then by extension to people outside of Google. First and foremost is sense of mission. It all begins with a mission that matters. And Google has done an extremely good job. From day one, they said our mission is to organize all of the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. They didn't say it is to maximize shareholders' value. I know that is important, but they start with the central mission. And that has defined the business or the career mission, the professional mission of many Googlers, in that they say, I find my work meaningful because through this I'm democratizing information. Google Maps, or I'm allowing somebody who's very talented and lives in a part of the world without even a movie studio to put up their music or talent. If someone has got, if you have extreme skills in Thai vegetarian cooking and you live in rural Thailand, you could record yourself and create a Thai vegetarian cooking channel, and you don't need the Food Network at that point. You could be on YouTube, you're your own producer. So in that sense, that democratization is something is very meaningful to a lot of Googlers. That is one.
And you as an organization, the leaders of the organization highlight that. So you let them also come to their own evaluations. At the same time, you encourage them to focus
Totally,
on
right?
mission.
Having a central mission. Or when we built the self-driving car, the team that worked on it, their mission was, they asked the central question, why do 1.8 million people die every year on road accidents? That is like twice the size of the city of San Francisco, and we let it happen over and over. And 97% of this is caused by human error. So why don't we solve for the human error? And hence, a central mission for the team was, let's try to reduce avoidable accidental deaths. And the concept of self-driving car was born.
Wow.
Or another team went to work on it and say another issue, which is the number one cost for Google as a company is electricity. That might surprise you, but if you think of the millions of servers that are deployed in data centers, every time you search, every time you watch a video, every time you do look up something on maps, it's triggering an activity in some server that consumes electricity, that heats the server, it needs to be cooled down. So when 1 billion people are using 8 different products are used by at least 1 billion people every month, there is so much of electrical consumption going on. So we have a certain responsibility about where we get that electricity from. So team went to work on it. And this year, 2017, will be the first year where every single kilowatt hour of electricity will be from a renewable source at Google.
Wow.
Every single kilowatt. And that, for that team that went to solve the problem, it is meaningful purpose. Because if we do it, others can then follow that same.
That's right.
It might be a little more expensive to do it, figure out a solution, but we are committed to it. And that's why I said mission matters. It results in highly creative output, incredible innovative ideas, and a happy workforce. But there are many other things I can talk about it through the interview. The second thing is the freedom that is given to people, so fundamental. And there are several elements of freedom that are made available as part of the Google working system or culture. An important one that a lot of people know about is 20% time, where every Googler can say, I'm going to put 20% of my time on some project that is deeply meaningful to me.
That's a lot. That's a full day.
That's a full day, yes. Although we joke about it at Google because we all work so very hard, we call it the 120% project. We do our full 100% and then put it. But it doesn't matter. So for example, in my case, my 20% project for many years has been creating this whole yoglers yoga movement at Google, teaching yoga, getting others to teach it. And that is deeply satisfying. I finish my day's work on Monday, then I go teach yoga, or on weekends I may take the Googlers on retreat. But Google still gives me the spaciousness to bring that passion in. And that freedom is there. I don't have to have a work life and take this aspect of my life outside of it. I can bring my whole self to work. So that freedom, that 20% being one example, also, and there are many, many dimensions I can point to in terms of freedom. The third, we looked at why some teams are high performing and some teams are less high performing. And Google is always obsessed with research and data and analyzing and getting to the bottom of it. So we started studying dozens and dozens of teams. We started looking variable after variable, almost 400 variables, and we couldn't find any real causality behind it, like in a statistically significant way, between the factors we thought might be resulting in high performance team. We thought maybe they're all homogeneous, they have the same kind of education or the same kind of technical background. That wasn't the case. We thought maybe the strong teams are particularly charismatic leaders and the less performing teams do not have that. That wasn't the case. So the data was a bit all over, and as we kept looking through the data, the factor that stood out, the one that had the strongest signal, was a concept called psychological safety. when members feel psychologically safe, I can bring my whole self to work, I can speak up my mind, I can take risks, I can fail, I can be different, and I will still be accepted, respected, and listened to. If teams that felt that way were performing better. You probably have seen the research of Project Aristotle.
I know Amy Edmondson's work very well.
Exactly.
And it's remarkable that this is what you found among all other factors that you were looking for. And this is something that any manager can create within her or his team.
Correct. By creating the right space and environment. Absolutely.
Now, when this was created in Google, was it explicit or was it intuitive? And why do you see it so much in a place like Google?
No, I said it's not just Google. Google is composed of human beings. Every other part of the world, organization, system is also composed of human beings. I think the average Googler is just as human as everyone else. What it tells me is that psychological safety is such an important concept for any group of human beings to come and function. I think it was the case 3,000 years ago, Tal, when when our ancestors were tribal somewhere and chasing a lion and coming back and then trying to light a fire or making a wheel or whatever we did.
That's right. And I think it's also very important, psychological safety in a family.
Without question, right? Yeah. Unless if you're a child, you feel there is violence or there is rage going on, you get damaged in a way, or you get affected by it. I shouldn't use the word damage, I apologize. You get affected by that in a way that might not be healthy over the long term. And if you feel psychologically safe, where you can make mistakes, you can learn, you'll be forgiven. Because as kids, we do it. We mess up, we do things wrong, we don't know, we're still figuring out the world. You need extreme amount of psychological safety.
Yes.
In my own family, I would say my parents had a very modest kind of living, but they had some basic values, and they provided enormous psychological safety. I could always go back home. They're still together, my parents, after some 60 years of marriage.
Wow.
And thanks to that kind of psychological safety, even though my parents never went to college, they had a rural Indian village school education. Me and my siblings have 10 college degrees, including 2 from US Ivy League business schools. So that and a psychological safety gave us the encouragement that we could continue to move forward and build our lives.
Yeah, so many parents today are asking, so what more can we give our children? How can we make we have maybe more financial possibilities. What we need to give them more than anything is this sense of safety.
Exactly.
And also going back to one thing you said earlier, also a sense of mission and purpose. What you do matters, it's important. What else do you introduce in Google?
Okay, the fourth one I want to talk about this concept of, I'm going to talk of several, but given the limited time, another concept I want to talk about what Google does extremely well is actually they put enormous amount of effort to help Googlers optimize their life. Okay, the group is called OYL, Optimize Your Life. And what this means is there is teams of Googlers deployed. This is their job to make it easy to figure out systems by which Googlers can optimize their life along the following dimension. One is physical. So exercise, nutrition, sleep, and basic health. All of these things, they make sure that there are things available so we can take care of physical health. Then they provide resources for mental and emotional health. Then they provide resources for financial health. They teach you, they run courses, they bring experts in, because that is also life energy. And then there might be times when parts of your life fall apart that's just how life is. And they make sure that there are systems in place to help you deal with that as well. So for example, there was a time when a few years ago, my father had a fall and injured his spinal cord, became paralyzed from the neck down. And it was like an instant moment our life had shifted, and there's a peak tragedy shortly after he had watched me speak in America through a live feed. He watched me speak through the internet, he and my mother, and then he had this accident. So I had to deal with it, and Google, no questions asked, allows me to take family medical leave, leave my job, everything behind, and I could go off feeling safe. My job is kept, and they pay me during the time so that we could take care of family members. So if there's anybody, parents, children, the spouse that needs that help, they give you the time and they have systems in place to allow you to take the time, deal with it, and then come back.
Yeah, and I think that systems in place, is so important, especially in a large organization like Google, where you're not dependent on the goodwill, perhaps, of an individual manager, but you have it
exactly.
as a whole.
So from basic things like you need a massage, go get a massage. It's available on every single office or major offices they have. Or if you want to sleep, there's not pods available. Just go get sleep and rested. Basic things like that, all the way to dealing with these unexpected emergencies that may come up in our life. They have put in place things to help us optimize our life at a physical, mental, emotional, and financial dimension.
Yeah, we spend so many hours in the workplace, and therefore it's so important that our organizations look after our well-being as well, rather than, okay, well, we're working and now we're going home to enjoy ourselves.
Exactly.
Well, Gopi, thank you very much for the work that you do in Google. Thank you, Google, for the amazing work that you do democratizing knowledge. And thank you for spreading happiness in our world.
Thank you, Tal. And thank you for being one of the pioneers in this area, for the course you created at Harvard, for the book you wrote. And you may or may not realize this, but thanks to the work you've done, your literature, your research, your speaking, your book, and now taking it out in the form of a consulting practice and TV, you have made single-handedly hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people happier. And that, I know, is your central purpose. You should feel very proud of it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate it.